Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Undergraduate Academic Webinar Series, an interactive online platform connecting high school students such as you to Ashoka's esteemed faculty. In this series, we'll talk about the majors and minors offered as part of Ashoka's undergraduate program. Our esteemed faculty will guide you in understanding the various aspects of the subject, including pedagogy, courses, research opportunities, careers, faculties, and other details about the program. In the past, we've covered economics, psychology, English, history, computer science, and entrepreneurship at Ashoka. The recordings for these previous sessions are available on Ashoka's YouTube channel, the link to which is provided in the chat box below. Our next few sessions will focus on some of the core science subjects, such as biology, chemistry, and physics, as well as economics and journalism and media studies. We will continue to send you updates about these sessions. I am Ritika Nara, a final year biology major, and I will be moderating the session today. Thank you for joining us for today's session, titled Interdisciplinary Sciences at Ashoka University with Professor S Shashidhara. Professor Shashidhara is the Dean of Research and a distinguished professor of Ashoka University. He is currently on leave from IISER Pune. He specializes in genetics, molecular biology, and evolutionary biology. Professor Shashidhara has served in the past as the Vice President of Indian National Science Academy, or INSA, and the Secretary General of the International Union of Biological Sciences. He is currently the President of IUBS, the first Indian to be elected in its 100 years of glorious history. He has represented India in several delegations and international platforms. He is steering an international project on climate change education. It's an honor to have you here with us, Professor. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nara. It's a kind introduction, and happy to be here talking to all the prospective students and their parents and teachers, those who are here today. And this is not the first time I'm talking about sciences in Ashoka. Some of you may have heard, and some of you may be new to this. There are lots of new information. Ashoka is a very dynamic place. Lots of things are happening. It's a happening place. Even those who heard me just a couple of months ago, subsequent to that, there are lots of new interesting information is emerging. Even during this COVID pandemic time, Ashoka has been able to expand its activities, add new features, new centers to its fold. Now, what I'll give you is sort of an overview of sciences in Ashoka. Nara, you mentioned that the talk talks about the interdisciplinary sciences in Ashoka. What do you mean by interdisciplinary sciences? I thought I'll give you an overview of all sciences. Is there anything that you want me to specifically mention, interdisciplinarity in Ashoka sciences? You are on mute.
Yes, Professor, yes. I think what we mean by interdisciplinary here is because at Ashoka, the one flexibility we do have as undergraduates is that we need not only focus on the degree we're studying, we can look at it from different lenses. While we're diving into the depths of our own majors, we have the opportunity to look at it from different other disciplines and include that perspective as well in the research that we conduct.
Fantastic. So maybe that's what I'll try and do. All of you students of perhaps sciences, even if you're not students of sciences, I'm sure you all know the methods of science. What science does is to help us and understand our world, both natural world and the human world, the one around us, whether social world or artificially, or even a cultural world, literary world. We would like to understand this world using systematic methods of science. And what science helps is to get the objective understanding beyond our own perception, individual perception. For example, none of you have seen, Earth moving around the sun, but that is the fact that science has discovered, right? And none of you, in fact, none of the 7 billion people on Earth as of now or ever lived on Earth since the evolution of human. No one has seen that it is the sun which moves around the Earth, right? Because every day we see sun coming up from the east and setting in the west. And we see the movement of the sun, but it's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world is the Earth moving around the sun, right? In that context, science helps, scientific methods help. So similarly, there are a lot of unperceived, beyond our own perception, some of the facts related to social world, whether it is related to socio-economic, issues of the society, whether it's related to agricultural practices, So this is where the scientific method helps, or even health related, how the pandemic, is sort of outbreak happens, how the virus infection happens, what is the social interaction we are talking about. Everybody talks about social distancing to keep away from the virus. What does it mean? Is it social distancing or physical distancing? What actually distancing means, to avoid a virus which is not even visible to none of us? How do we know how to keep virus away from us when we can't even see it, right? So these are the kind of topics that sciences help us to understand and give us a better way of living, in addition to fulfilling our curiosity to know the world right around us. So in Ashoka, how do we approach the subject of sciences at undergraduate level? Because this whole talk is meant for undergraduate students. Let me start sharing my slides. Okay. Now, Ashoka is a liberal arts, research university. What it means is, one is it's liberal arts. I'll tell you what liberal arts means. First is very obvious for you is research university means all faculty do research. There are Ph.D. students and postdoctoral researchers on campus, and there is sufficiently, good research infrastructure for people to do research, whether it is in sciences or social sciences or humanities. And many of you may have come across large number of statements and articles, even in popular press by Ashoka faculty. Today, for example, there is a article in the Indian Express by an Ashoka faculty on the implication of budget in the socio-economic aspect of our society. Just 2 days ago, there was a full 1 hour dialogue with one of our faculty on NDTV to discuss what should be the some of the elements of the budget which will help the economic recovery post COVID time. And related to COVID, related to infection or related to infection spread, related to vaccine, post-vaccine world, there's a lot of discussion happening, and many Ashokan faculty are involved in this. So obviously they could be involved because they are doing research in those areas, right? Not simply because they're teaching. Then anybody could have come on the newspaper or television. The reason they were picked up by the popular media is simply because they are doing good research and well known in their field. The second is the liberal arts. What does it mean is, when you come to Ashoka, it's not that it's an arts. In India, when you say arts, you usually come to your mind is BA, Bachelor of Arts kind of a program. It's not that. It's an American sort of terminology, liberal arts. Liberal arts universities are common in US and not many places other than US and some of the smaller countries. And in Europe, you don't use the word liberal arts university, although liberal arts programs are possible. Liberal arts means you come and open up your mind and you learn the art of learning any discipline of your interest or any topic of your interest, not necessarily discipline, right? Any topic of your interest. And that art of learning, the skills of learning, because the art and skills come only when you understand the discipline, understand the methods of discipline and so forth, right? That's what liberal arts is. So in a way, you come with an open mind, you walk into Ashoka. Tomorrow you may become an economics major and a biology minor, or you may want to take up biology as a major, or psychology as a minor, or international relationship as minor, right? So that's the kind of diversity you can actually get in Ashoka. Sometimes it may feel that you are very confused which topic you take, but the sufficient handholding, counseling happens by the faculty and the educators of Ashoka, and of course our senior students like Nara, who will help you to identify appropriate major and minor as per your interest, purely as per interest. Not necessarily that you should worry about what kind of job is waiting for you to take up. You should create your own opportunities. You should create your own jobs. That's what Ashoka teaches you. You say, rather than I want to apply, there is a job available in such and such a place. Instead, I am this such a person. I have these kind of skills, this kind of understanding of my discipline. This is what I can contribute to you. You create a job for me, kind of an approach you should take. That's what Ashoka makes you. That means you have become a leader in your own, in our own way. That you lead your life on your terms. That's the kind of teaching it's possible in a liberal arts research university like Ashoka, right? Now, coming to sciences, now what we really trying to do is not only that we learn science like physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, and so forth, you also sort of, connect to other domains of human creativity and critical thinking. This is where history, anthropology, economics, literature, performing arts, all of these things are possible, right? And even in the whether we teach, any of the science disciplines, again, we discipline are talked about in a very fundamental concept of it, right? Like physics are taught in a way that brings both elegance of principles of natural world. Physics typically deals with both at the very high galactical level of universe to microscopic, levels of the particle physics, right? But at the same time, there's also sufficient complexity that still need to be understood. We still do not know how large is the universe. We still have very little information about the nature of gravity. What is the ultimately energy, is made up of, right? Is there really some kind of a particle? Is some kind of a string? What is actually ultimate, particle nature of the world, right? All of these things are still, there are many things to be discovered, and that's what also you'll learn. What are the open-ended questions? You also try to apply your understanding of the physics, chemistry, math, and biology for solving the problems, right? Before I come to that, when you go to other disciplines like chemistry, if you want to take, you will learn chemistry not only as chemistry, you also learn the physics of the chemistry, because chemistry starts when two atoms join together, right? When a molecule is born, then the chemistry is born. Until then, it's only, for example, one hydrogen atom, it's physics. When two hydrogen atoms come together, it becomes H2, then it becomes chemistry. Or one hydrogen and two hydrogen atom and one oxygen atoms come together, it becomes water, then it becomes chemistry. The properties of water, very often it is physics, not chemistry, right? So as you can make out, you can actually, chemistry and physics are very interchangeable. And without physics, you can't do good chemistry, right? Similarly, biology. What is biology? When chemical reactions happen in an ordered state, then it becomes biology. What you call the chemistry in the biological system is also called biochemistry, right? So we teach physics, chemistry, and biology as a continuum rather than independent disciplines, right? So but again, you don't need to go deeper into physics or chemistry if you are more interested in biology, or you don't need to go deeper into physics or biology if you want interested in chemistry. But you will have sufficient understanding of the other disciplines so that you, for whichever the topic that you get more interested in a particular area. For example, in biology, let's say you are more interested in elephant behavior for whatever the reason, good or bad reason. Now, you need to understand a bit of mathematics, you need to understand a bit of psychology, you need to understand a bit of physics, you need to understand a bit of chemistry to understand the behavior, right? So all of that will be taught along with some of the biological principles for you to understand elephant behavior. So tomorrow you can go on Natural Geographic channel and make a documentary on elephant behavior. You'll also study how to make documentaries in Ashoka. And mathematics is also taught, particularly in the context of sciences, as a language that connects all the disciplines, and basically, how you can actually, develop an abstract understanding of your surroundings with mathematical terms, right? For example, topology, right? I'm sure some of you may know. Pedagogy is research-based because all faculty do research, and inquiry-based rather than simply reading out from a textbook. We'll try and ask you as much of questions as possible. Although the current online mode of teaching is less interactive and many times maybe difficult to ask questions to the faculty, but faculty are always available. There are other time, there are what are known as office hours of the faculty. You can go and ask any questions to the faculty, or you can send emails asking several questions to the faculty, and they're always available to answer your questions. And also the science is learned the way scientific discoveries are made. We're not going to tell you that Galileo discovered, this earth moves around the sun. But how Galileo discovered it? Was it Galileo alone who discovered it? What was the contribution by other people like Copernicus, Kepler, and everything? How, actually, irrespective of the names, forget about the names, who did what, how scientific discoveries are made, how landmark discoveries are made. So when you discuss that topic, you also need to know how it was discovered. Then only you will understand the topic in a much better way. Because our faculty do research, it's easier for us to discover. For example, I'm a biologist, I'm a geneticist. It's not that difficult for me to explain Mendelian genetics, the way Mendel discovered it, or Darwinian evolution, the way Darwin discovered it, or how the DNA double helical structure was discovered the way, Watson and Crick discovered it, right? So, and who are all the faculty who are going to teach you? Our faculty, of course, are, do innovation in teaching is simply because they keep coming here and giving lectures, and because they do research, they'll have a more refined understanding of the topic they're talking about, and they can do more, interest connection to the real world of those topics. And we have experimental faculty, computational faculty, mathematical faculty, theoretical research, all kind of combinations of faculty we have. So you can actually approach, faculty in a very different way. And interdisciplinary researchers are very common. That's one of the reasons why Ashoka has a very strong interdisciplinarity. In fact, we have very joint faculty. There are faculty who are physics and biology affiliation. There are faculty who are chemistry and biology affiliation, faculty in psychology and biology affiliation. And that's how you can get many. And many faculty are well celebrated ones, and several awards they have won. Some of the faculty who are seniors, among the seniors, full professors are here. I'm a biologist. Professor Shai Jamil is another biologist. Saurabh Paul is a chemist, faculty, very celebrated. Currently the director of IISR Calcutta is a visiting faculty here and soon to be joined full-time. Professor Rajendra Bhatia, who is a very famous mathematician and also, cryptography expert. Gautam Menon is a physicist, but also works on epidemiology, works on, complex biological systems, including chromosomal, organization inside the nucleus. Although he's a condensed matter physicist, he can teach physics, chemistry, biology, and all three subjects. Subhashish Banerjee is a computer science person. His specialization is artificial intelligence and machine learning. In addition to teaching core computer science courses, he can actually teach how computer science can be used to, for example, in pathology of cancer, right? Mukesh is a visiting faculty, is a very celebrated chemistry faculty in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is a synthetic chemistry person, how you can make artificial proteins, artificial enzymes, functional, enzymes. So there are, just to give you a gist of the kind of faculty we have. Now, the courses, I'm now not getting into the details of our curriculum, syllabi, and all those details. For example, there are unique lab courses. Lab courses are not like, for example, you already have a set protocol and you have to just follow that protocol and say, what is this material or what is the measurement of osmosis and kind of stuff. Every lab course is a project in itself. There will be an open-ended question, and whatever you observe, whatever you discover, you have to justify, you have to explain, you have to interpret in your own way. And you may be wrong, you may be correct in discovering or in observing something, but it doesn't matter. Whether you're wrong also is fine. Whether you follow the right methodology is what is more important for us. So everybody, use the hands-on experiment. It's no demonstrations here. Whereas high-end, I'm sure all of you must have heard about RT-PCR now that, that's so common because of the pandemic. I'm sure many of you may have given samples for RT-PCR testing of the SARS-CoV-2. And even such kind of sophisticated experiment you will be doing on your own, right? That's because we have a research labs and undergraduate students work in a similarly equipped research labs. It's all work combined. In fourth year, if you enter into our program, you will be taking more advanced PhD level courses so that you can actually future PhD become much shorter and much more easier if you want to pursue a PhD later. Research methodologies are taught to you. You're continuously exposed to seminars, and computer science and data science and some of the mathematical methods are present in all disciplines, irrespective of which discipline you choose as your major or minor. Some of the special courses on climate change and some of these things also we have introduced. In biology, some of the research areas which are combined with teaching, synthetic biology, which is a latest modern program in biology, data science, biochemistry, biodiversity, ecology, evolution. This is a way biology would be taught, and you can learn at the molecular level all the way up to the forest level. It means biology is learned at all scales of size and complexity. These are some of the areas in physics of biological systems, quantum field theory and its applications, some of the latest and some of the most undiscovered aspects of physics. and the properties of soft matter, right? And then the study of complex systems, right? These are some of the, which is because how it goes from traffic management to socio-economic, network to, understanding the biological complexity to universe, all aspects is very complex. How to study complex system is itself is a method in physics. In chemistry, we have again synthetic biology and bio-inspired chemistry, like synthetic enzymes. Then molecular biology, because again the chemistry of molecules rather than biology of chemical molecules. The material science and the pharmaceutical science. So some of the new upcoming areas in chemistry are, is written here, and we are going to invest heavily in chemistry. Particularly, chemistry is the mother of all sciences to some extent historically, and we're going to invest heavily on chemistry and introduce some of these new courses in the coming years. Now, we also have started what's called interdisciplinary centers because Ashoka has such fantastic faculty. They may be working in particular area of research, but they can actually use their expertise and going beyond their disciplines. So it will be a fantastic opportunity for Ashoka to actually, take up some of those kind of, initiatives and to set up interdisciplinary centers. These centers also useful for undergraduate students to learn some new areas of sciences which are actually emerging, and there are more employability opportunities. For example, we started a Center for Climate Change and Sustainability Studies. Now, this center, if you go through this center, post-Paris Agreement, then kind of almost many new types of job would be available. How to reduce carbon footprint, how to make any organization more sustainable, whether you go to a IT industry, whether you go to manufacturing industry or pharma industry, or whether you become a government employee or a politician, economist, you need to keep on worrying about climate change, its impact, and how to make our life sustainable, right? So some of these skills and knowledge are going to be very useful, and that's the kind of centers we are going to start. One is we just started Trivedi School of Biosciences, and I'll not go into the details, and it's going to focus on mostly diseases. And disease also, there are three ways of looking at it. One is Center for Disease Biology will focus only directly on viruses and bacterial diseases. Inflammation biology is our response to infection, our response to some disease. Disease can be infectious disease or non-infectious disease, but our body responds in an inflammation. For example, I'm sure all of you must have heard about cytokine storm in the context of COVID. Now, that is actually an inflammation response of our body to the infection. When sudden sort of a jolt to the body when there is a viral infection. Similarly, a body gets jolted when there is a bacterial infection or there is a cancer tumor developing inside our body. Or even diabetes, for example, right? When there is too much of sugar in your blood, again, the body gives a very violent response to this kind of unnatural, problems. And that's what we call inflammation biology. So that is being studied in one group. In another center, we what is called synthetic biology to address solutions to these problems, modern solutions to these problems. So as you can make out, these are all, can talk to each other, and at the same time, they can also have independent within the discipline itself, sub-discipline in biology. We just started another new center. I'm sure even Nara may have not heard about it. We started this Center for Interdisciplinary Archaeological Research. What is archaeology? Study of history, which is of a time much before even the script, was invented by human societies. So unrecorded, undocumented history of human, right? That's where archaeology starts, right? For example, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, we hardly any information from the written text. But how to understand Harappa, Mohenjo-daro civilization, what kind of lifestyle they had, what they were eating, what kind of disease they had, why they became, that those areas became, completely barren later, why they deserted this area, what there is big disease and because of which they, had to desert, or there was a problem of climate, environment, or, water problem. So how to understand all these? Because understanding that earlier history will also help us, our current, understanding of our own civilization, our own lifestyle, our own nutrition, our own eating style, and what we eat, what we wear, right? Which religion we are practicing. At the same time, it will also help in addressing some of the problems of the today's society. So because there is no written document, there is a different way of reconstructing. There's where scientific methods come. In India, there is really hardly any place where archaeological material is scientifically, analyzed, like ancient DNA lab we are setting up, right? The physical and chemical characterization of the pottery or jewelry that someone finds in an archaeological site. So, and we have fantastic. The number one archaeologists, number one historians are all in Ashoka. Lahari is a celebrated archaeologist. Professor Upinder Singh is a celebrated ancient history faculty, and a couple of biologists who are all joining our hands. And we have already recruited 2 young faculty to work in this center. We also have fantastic advisors to make sure that we continuously, improve ourselves. So we both for academic, both in teaching and research, as well as for making our, sciences more connected to real life problems. So for example, we have fantastic science, advisors. At the same time, we also have, advisors from pharma companies or some policy experts, pharma companies, like some of the CEOs and CMDs of the famous pharma company like Sun Pharma and Reddy's. They're all advisors to Ashoka in very closely interacting with us. How to develop a new curriculum which is sort of more useful for addressing the problems of the pharma industry and so forth, or how to identify a new discipline within Ashoka, and that's what other science advisors are helping us. Just to give you an example, we have close to about 10 very, very famous advisors. 2 of them, as shown here, is they are, both of them are Nobel laureates. And these advisors are not just simply notional advisors. They are very active in selecting new faculty. They run all the faculty applications are actually go through all our advisors. They are give active, critical, comments and suggestions in faculty recruitment, who finally end up teaching our undergraduate students too. Facilities, while it is being, although in a new university and older university, compared to older university, we already have very good facilities. We are further expanding our research facilities. And I'll just skip there, just show you some pictures. You don't need to worry about what is an NMR or what is a cryo-EM or those things, I'll just show you. This is, for example, a typical undergraduate teaching lab, which is also used as a research lab. I'm sure Nara has seen it and worked here. This is a physics lab, and this is the chemistry lab, right? As you can make out. And here are some of the students, for example, except the top left one, all others are undergraduate students. Top left also the undergraduate students, senior undergraduate students doing small projects are mostly along with Ph.D. students. And here is some undergraduate students gathering around to discuss some concepts. They're all undergraduate students working in the lab. The top right, there are a few PhD students are also in the picture. So this is some new building coming up. Very soon we'll have another new science building, which will, again, how to improve interdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarity comes only when faculty, PhD students, undergraduate students are in the same building. Now, irrespective of which, for example, you may go to a biochemistry class between, let's say, 12:30 to 1:30. And next you may go to, let's say, a biophysics class. You may have, your classmates in that particular class could be coming from physics. So a lot of peer interaction happens amongst the students, among the faculty. And that's where the very vibrant interdisciplinary culture can happen. And that's what Ashoka is already has achieved in a very short time of its existence, and we are further expanding it. And we are all waiting for you to come to our campus. Thank you very much. I'll stop here, Pritika. I hope, managed in 30 minutes. Not bad, right?
Right. Let's move on to some questions, Professor.
Yeah. Let me stop sharing.
To begin with, we talked about interdisciplinarity. Could you please help us identify the difference between interdisciplinarity, multi, and then transdisciplinary sciences?
Okay. So interdisciplinary is typically, when you deal with 2 disciplines at a time, right? Or, say, for example, international when you talk about international relationship, right? So India versus US, India versus China, or India versus Sri Lanka, these are the kind of interrelationship. So international, right? When you talk about multidisciplinary, as usual, multiple members are involved. So interaction amongst the multiple members or multiple disciplines. And transdisciplinary is something which basically goes beyond the conventional disciplinary connections. So typically, all of you know, students, that physics, chemistry, biology are well connected to each other. In school textbook, for example, science textbook, until I think 10th standard or 9th standard, there's only one science book. And it will have physics, chemistry, biology. It will not have mathematics. It will not have social science or geography or such kind of thing. But when it comes to 11th and 12th, you will have physics separate, chemistry and biology separate, because you're learning more, but still they have discipline specific, but still one can make connections. Because you are now separating physics, chemistry, anything that is connected between physics, chemistry is called interdisciplinary. But if you want to bring in, let's say I want to study Shakespeare, but I also want to study some aspect of biology, like psychology, for example, right? That becomes transdisciplinary. I'll give you an example. I've heard about V.S. Ramachandran, very famous neuroscientist in the University of California in San Diego. And he actually studied why Shakespeare is so good in giving, what's called metaphors. Right? Shakespeare is called king of metaphors, right? So apparently, by studying large number of, the people who actually are good in metaphors, he discovered that they have a particular situation in the brain called synesthesia. So in a way, they can actually correlate a meaning of certain word to a certain something else. For example, color means something different. Number means something different, right? In their word. So they correlate very nicely. So that's very transdisciplinary, right? As you can make out.
Yes. Moving on to questions that people have put in the Q&A box. Somebody asks, can they pursue computer science with philosophy at Ashoka?
Computer science with?
Philosophy.
Oh, yes, very much. That's what I'm telling you. There is absolutely no sort of barrier between major and minor. You can pick any subject as major and minor, any subject as minor. So in computer science and philosophy one can take, there are two reasons. It's not that the student can take two completely different ones. It's simply because I want to use this for my profession, this for my hobby. For example, performing arts, right? You can take physics as a major and let's say dance or music as your minor. It's simply because you want to continue to be proficient in that one because that's your hobby, that you have an interest in that. But for your profession, you want to take. There's another way of looking at major and minor is because they are related. You want to develop your own new, cross-disciplinary, some kind of a area. Philosophy and computer science work very well because the philosophy uses that kind of logic. Philosophy is based on the logic, and the computer science is very simple. Basically the logic of your coding has to be perfect. Otherwise, none of the software will work, right? And logic is something very common. The first thing is taught in computer science is logic. So there's a linkage between physical, philosophy and computer science.
And of course, you don't have to choose subjects only based on your major and minor. There are certain courses that you can do just because you're interested in them, or you can choose to do concentration should you not want to do entire minors as well.
You know better than me.
Somebody asks, what exactly can you do in the centers at Ashoka?
So centers are typically for purposes of research. So on undergraduate student point of view, having such centers will give you an exposure to some interdisciplinary topics, some modern, topics in research, and also in, careers for future jobs. At the same time, you can be an intern, right? While teaching could be still discipline specific with some interdisciplinary courses. For example, we can talk about, an archaeology course, which it also involves, understanding the archaeological history using DNA or, some chemical analysis of pottery or something like that. So that's one aspect of it. The second one is undergraduate students actually become research interns in those places during summer and winter holidays.
Right. Our next question is there any scope to become a teaching assistant at Ashoka?
Yes, so all the students in their fourth year, they are welcome as teaching assistant. And in fact, my course, just now we finished that lecture before 30 to 6, a question of, the foundation course on concept of time. And so a teaching fellow in that particular course is a current fourth year students with physics as a major and biology as minor.
Right. And there are certain departments that accept even third years as teaching assistants. So it is all very department specific.
Yeah, okay. So, good.
Moving on to some research related questions, Professor. How soon can undergraduates conduct research?
Well, the day they join. So it's all depend on their interest. And the only thing is you need to come to do research with clear commitment, and it's a long haul. You should not say that a half day I'll come, I'll do research, and then I won't come again, because research is you need a lot of patience, and you need to systematically do research, right? Whether it is a computational or mathematical or theoretical or experimental. So you need to spend sufficient amount of time within a research group. For example, many of our undergraduate students, in first year, first semester, or either sometime in summer is easier because 2 months or 3 months of holidays, you can be a researcher full time. But during the term time, one can spare that free time in the evenings of weekdays and the weekends, and hanging around with the research groups, to learn a lot of things, as a research. So anybody can join and come anytime. We have no problem.
Are there any students currently assisting you in your field of research?
Tell me again, what's the question?
Are there any students currently assisting you in your field of research at Ashoka?
In my lab?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have, I have I moved to Ashoka about 2 years ago. Before that, I had my lab in Pune. I still continuing to keep that lab. It's not closed yet. So 3 or 4 PhD students are working in that place. But I have 2 PhD students working here in Ashoka, plus 1 undergraduate student doing, master's, not master's, what is called advanced thesis project uh, in my lab.
Right. A slightly different question. What opportunities do science undergraduates get to participate in exchange programs?
So we have 2 kinds of exchange program. There are open-ended exchange programs that you can, anybody can apply. And typically we select 3 or 4 with a partner institute, in India, US, or Europe. In some cases, they are very specifically mentioned it's for sciences, and they need to compete for it. So we try and accommodate anybody who is interested, but typically there will be some amount of competition for that.
Right.
And we are expanding that. We're expanding that, and also there are other type of internship, not necessarily exchange program. It'll be one-way travel, where because of our contacts, because we are all researchers, we are globally connected. If any student is interested, has the ways to spend 3 months or 2 months in Chicago or in New York to London or Cambridge, we can arrange that. Sometimes financial help may not be available. Sometimes it will be available.
Right. Staying on the topic of internships, Professor, are there any internships available to students on campus?
So student internship on campus is very common, right? That's what I'm telling you. All your summer time, you can spend on campus with one or other group. That's an internship in a way, right? And it will be many of our undergraduate students, including yourself, I'm sure, you're writing a manuscript now. And few of my undergraduate students within the 3 years program itself, they have research publications from having done internship on campus.
Right. A slightly important question, Professor. How is computer science at Ashoka different from engineering colleges?
Okay, very interesting question. Good that you asked me, or whoever asked that question. So, in engineering department, as you can make out, what is engineering? Engineering is application of what is the knowledge already known for some societal problems, so addressing some societal problems. So for example, civil engineering, you know so much of physics and mathematics. You learn how to build buildings, how to build bridges or roads or dams and kind of things, right? Similarly, computer science is actually something where computers, first of all, to come to engineering programs, what they learn is computer engineering, not computer science. There's two different things. Computer science is a branch of mathematics, right? It's certain logic and certain kinds of theorem used to build an algorithm. That algorithm is converted into a software, and that software is used for certain specific purposes. So typically, post algorithm, writing the software is what is taught mostly in engineering schools, and in more engineering, particularly in IITs and some very good engineering schools. But in most of the other engineering schools across the country, we have mushrooms, everywhere, the engineering schools, colleges, right? They only teach how to use a software, not even many times. You can write a small course to modify your software, but not necessarily to completely rewrite a whole new software. Some good engineering schools do it, engineering colleges. Whereas in Ashoka, the computer science is start from basics. You start from how our brain thinks about an idea and how your idea is logically reconstructed on a piece of paper, and how it can be used in a reproducible way to develop an algorithm. All of this is on a piece of paper. We don't need a computer for this. In fact, I keep saying this to many undergraduate students all the time. The first R&D center of Microsoft was set up in Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and second one was in Bangalore, R&D center. It's not the same as the Microsoft, development center. Development center has thousands of people, and Hyderabad is the headquarters in India. Whereas in Bangalore, there are only about 90 people in R&D centers. And out of them, 80 or so are mathematicians. They were not computer scientists or computer engineers. But they don't even need a computer. They need a pencil and a paper. But obviously, what we are now going to do, that level of computer science, it's a mixture. It's a very typically interdisciplinary. Our students learn from an abstract thinking of an algorithm all the way up to software, and then its application, all three. So it's very pretty well designed program, so that our students can actually do research in computer science, or they can apply AI, ML, or such kind of cryptography or such blockchain understanding to address some real life problems.
Right. Talking of machine learning, Professor, somebody says, could you please tell us more about the new emphasis machine learning in computational lab?
Oh, someone has renamed our emphasis lab. So emphasis has given an endowment, very generous endowment, to develop methodologies to address, so use AI and ML in healthcare, particularly, and drug development. Now, the problem is if you develop a system that, let's say, like Microsoft is something which is used for, word processing, or for, PowerPoint presentation, or Excel for analysis. But you also have developed, let's say, a software which does very complex, things, right? Analysis. And let's say analyzes the real-time climate data. Now, how do you even evaluate this software, performance of this? Because the data analytics, whatever the output comes, you don't know the real answer to this. Whatever the answer comes, that's the answer of the computer. If we say 2 + 2 = 4, you know it should give 4, then you know whether the calculator is working or not. But when you develop a very complex software, how to even know whether the software is working properly or not? Right. So in my emphasis laboratory is an assignment to Ashoka faculty, and along with undergraduate and PhD students, is to develop methods of assessing an AI and ML mediated software, whether they are working to give proper solution to a real life problem or not. tomorrow I use it, let's say for cancer pathology. Someone develops an AI and ML and company and say that, you use this, you can, sort of get a precise understanding of what stage of the cancer is. And if the doctor is treating based on that, machine derived information, how do we know it's reliable? So the software reliability is, there should be methods of assessing software reliability. So that's the research that we are doing.
Right. Professor, could you please tell us more about the study abroad options and then internships as well during the school year at Ashoka?
Broad, what did you say?
Study,
Internship I already spoke about, right?
right, but study abroad options as in, if they want to go for semesters abroad?
Okay, study abroad, sorry. So we do have, because of this pandemic is sort of stalled in the last 1 or 2 years, we assess whether, whatever you do is one semester elsewhere, whether it is transferable to Ashoka, program, depends on, equivalence of what you do there to Ashoka's semester program. For example, if you had to take 18 credits in Ashoka to minimum to complete a semester, and whatever you do elsewhere, whether it be equivalent of 18 credit, and whether the assessment in that university is as rigorous as what we do to get appropriate grades, so to get into the transcript. So all that thing, has to be done, and only then we'll approve that you can go and take one semester abroad and then come back and then give us the degree certificate, the transcript.
Right. Somebody asks, could you please comment on the computer science course and the scope? And by scope, I think they mean job opportunities.
Yeah, so computer science is easier. So computer science is the one where scope is not something to be asked, because I told you, you will get jobs in R&D centers of computer science like Google or Microsoft kind of places. You will also get jobs in the routine computer application systems like Infosys or TCS, such kind of companies also. And currently what's happening is most Ashoka students, invariably, they would like to do more studies. And while there are sufficient large number of students are going to industry or academic industry to start with, but invariably after 1 or 2 years, they still pursue masters. Many of them also would like to pursue PhD. So scope is not an issue for computer science student or any subject, particularly. It all depends on how you teach, what you learn, how you learn. And once you are confident and we are competent to solve any problem, whether academic problem related to research or real life problem related to the field in which you want to take up a job, there won't be any problem.
Of course. Will environmental studies be made a major, which is currently a minor only?
Environmental studies will become a major very soon. As I told you, we are expanding our environmental science program, environmental studies program to climate change and sustainability. So then it will have, basically, again, it will be truly interdisciplinary program. You will have faculty would be looking at, for example, earth science, what is climate science, how the change, human anthropogenic activities are impacting the climate. That's the climate change, and then how it's impacting our biodiversity and our wildlife and human health, our agriculture, right? At the same time, people also were studying the socio-economic implication of climate change. For example, certain sections of the society are badly affected compared to other sectors, right? And so some of these things are also very important to study. So we are making it truly an interdisciplinary program, and it will become a major very soon.
Talking about some career-related questions, somebody asks, what are the most common fields or career paths that students enter into after 4 years as a biology undergraduate?
Okay, so I'll tell you what happens is, conventionally in a good research place, if someone does an undergraduate program, invariably their mindset would be to pursue research at least for until PhD level, and then think of an alternate career in case they don't want to get into research and teaching in academic places. They may go to industry, they may go to science communication, administration, management, and so forth. Right? In Ashoka, what we are trying to do is to sort of advance this decision-taking process early on, that in the first 3 to 4 years in Ashoka, right now it is a 3-year degree program, and with the new education policy, it will be 4-year program. In any case, there is a 4th year option in Ashoka itself, called Advanced Study Program, which is equivalent to 4th year degree program. In US university, they are accepted as 4-year degree program. Directly, you can go to PhD after 4 years in Ashoka. Now, these students, we want to expose them to both basic biology and applied biology and translational biology, so that they can actually go to job based on their interest and based on the necessary, not necessary that everybody, would like to go to PhD. Some people may, out of, financial reasons, they may not want to study further. They want to take up a job as early as possible. So we want to sort of ensure that everybody, whichever the career path they want to take, will be there. In fact, next week, I think we have a session with pharma companies for our current undergraduate students to show that how to ensure that pharma companies take notice of our undergraduate students in biology and recruit them. So we are also telling pharma industry, we go out of our way and tell them how we teach, what is our curriculum, why we think our students would be valuable for a pharma industry and so forth. So, it's again plenty.
Right. Another biology question. Does Ashoka currently have a biotechnology course? Could you please tell us more about it and if there is an
Yeah,
eligibility criteria
we
for
do
it?
have. We don't call it a degree in biotechnology like many engineering colleges have. The reason is biotechnology is possible unless only when you know sufficient foundations in biology, right? Without understanding genetics, molecular biology, or cell biology, or the evolutionary biology, you can't do good biotechnology, right? Say, because you're a biotechnology student, you go to directly to an engineering college, they will teach you how to, let's say, develop a drug against a pathogenic bacteria. But unless you know what is actually a pathogenic bacteria means, what is the interaction between the host and the pathogen, how they have evolved to have this interaction, how the pathogen is evolving, what are the dynamics of the pathogen, why it may become drug resistant, then your drug development program will not be successful unless you have a fundamental understanding of biology. So we teach biotechnology and some additional topic as part of the biology. For example, how to do, gene cloning, or how to develop transgenic, organisms, or how to sort of, like in synthetic biology, how to develop a new molecule which can degrade, or how new, for example, bacteria which can degrade plastic and such kind of, examples we'll give you during teaching. So you will learn biotechnology as part of the, degree program, not necessarily with the same name biotechnology.
Right. A rather specific question from a very young student, Professor. They say that they wish to major in psychology and further research on the behavior of astronomers. They're a grade 10 student, and the subjects selected by them are maths, economics, geography, and psychology. What are their opportunities at Ashoka?
Very complicated question. Anyway, um, fine. I mean, you can study psychology, you can study, neuroscience first. A combination of psychology and neuroscience you should do, because you should not only study psychology the way conventional psychology is done. But in any way, Ashoka psychology is very well integrated with neuroscience. Without understanding the brain structure, the neuronal network, how the chemical signals travel in the brain, how the information is processed in the brain, you will not be able to understand the behavioral outcome, because psychology only looks at the behavior from outside, and you don't know what happens in the brain. Unless you know what happens in the brain, your knowledge is incomplete. And if you want to study behavior of astronauts, or the implication of space travel on the behavior of astronauts, that's how you should put it. Astronomers will not have any separate behavior which is different from any other human being on their own. And I think your question is, because they are in zero gravity kind of a situation, because they are far away from the Earth, maybe there's a lot of stress, and there is a absence of gravity. So how it may affect the neuronal function, leading to behavioral change. So this obviously you can definitely pursue after your undergraduate program in Ashoka, because undergraduate psychology is largely science based, and neuroscience is sort of vertical, sort of running through the entire curriculum. Yeah, that's okay. Answer to the student, you can check with her or him.
Sure, I'll follow up. A last question we can take up, Professor, is what are the PhD prospects after the 4-year UG program?
PhD.
Yes.
Okay. So once the fourth year degree program, see right now it's called 3+1. According to Indian University Grants Commission, this is not eligible for PhD, whereas although American universities are accepting 3+1 as equivalent to 4-year degree program. But under new education policy, which is going to be implemented from this year, our 4-year program will be considered as a 4-year degree, and you will be directly eligible for a PhD program. So you need to apply, you need to go through still a screening process and compete with outside students, and then enter into a PhD program. And in PhD, students all get full fellowship, and it's fully supported, funded program. All PhD students get fellowship from Ashoka.
Right. All right. Just one last sort of pertinent question. Would you be able to give an example of the type of research that undergraduates are currently engaging in?
Well, Nara, you should tell this. You are engaging in some research. That's the best example you can give.
Right. So I am working in Professor Shubhashish Haldar's lab, and I am working closely with the biochemistry and the biophysics of cellular basis. So it's molecular biology, but looking at it from a physical biochemical lens. And I think that is truly interdisciplinary. So I think that's a good example.
Yeah, but you only mentioned the topic. What she actually doing, maybe I'll mention the specific work she is doing, which is very exciting. So, the proteins are the both structural components of a cell as well as the functional component, like enzymes are functional component, microtubules, actin are the structural components. There are also proteins which help in helping the cells to stretch itself further, right? For example, let's say your amoeba, it sort of stretches its cell so much, and it can move by stretching and releasing itself. So cells get adhered to a matrix or some surface, and then when the cell wants to move, with the help of internal forces, it sort of stretches itself. During stretch, this protein should still hold on to the surface. Otherwise, the whole cell will come out of this one, right? Then how will you move? For example, the way we walk, one leg is on the floor, on the ground, and another leg we take up and take it to the front, and then only lift the second one after putting the first one on the floor ground, right? Otherwise, you cannot move forward, right? You need support. When these proteins are sort of flexible, the way that they have a spring-like action, right? There are certain proteins that have that spring-like action. So where do they get that force? Where do they get that property? Right? The way we study is you have to take proteins as a single molecule and then apply known amount of force, and then you try to stretch it and release it, stretch it and release at very different amounts of force and very different timing of stretching and releasing. This kind of study can be done only with certain specific type of instruments, and only one type of it is called magnetic tweezer. And in the lab where Ritika Nara is working, they have actually built that instrument for the first time in India called magnetic tweezer to look at the protein, and that's the kind of work she is doing, right?
Yes, Professor, exactly.
Very exciting.
Thank you so much, Professor. Let's wrap up now. I think it's time. I hope this webinar has been helpful in understanding the uniqueness of the science program at Ashoka University. And a few last points before we wrap up today's session. Please take a minute to share your feedback with us. The link to the feedback form is in the chat box. Our next webinars in the science series are on biology, chemistry, and physics at Ashoka. On Tuesday, the 9th of February at 6 p.m., we have the session Why Study Biology at Ashoka with Professor Alok Bhattacharya, who's the head of department and a professor of biology at Ashoka. On 16th February at 6 p.m., we have the session on Why Study Chemistry at Ashoka with Professor Saurav Pal, who's a visiting professor. And on 23rd February at 6 p.m., we have the session on physics with Professor Gautam Menon, who's a professor of physics and biology at Ashoka University. The registration links to join these sessions are provided in the chat box. We would also like to invite you for a webinar on need-based financial aid at Ashoka University. with the Office of Financial Aid on Friday, which is 5th of February from 6 to 7 p.m. Ashoka offers need-based financial aid to all deserving students in the form of fee waivers. While admission is based on merit of the student, financial aid is given completely based on the affordability of the student's family. Students can get aid anywhere from 25% to over 100% waiver on tuition and living expenses. The registration link for this webinar is also provided in the chat box below. Lastly, I'd like to inform our audience that the round 3 applications for the undergraduate program are now open. The last date to submit your application in this round is 14th March 2021. You can start your application at apply.ashoka.edu.in. Please visit our website, which is www.ashoka.edu.in, for the complete details on the admissions process and the timeline. If you have any other questions or would like to know more about Ashoka's unique interdisciplinary undergraduate program, you can write to us at apply@ashoka.edu.in or call us on the number that's on the screen currently. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you. Thank you all.